can we stop with this Ohtani obsession, at least for this next week and a half? I'm firmly on board, and I was even before Tom Verducci told us what he thought a couple of days ago. I don't think the Angels are trading this guy. I think it'd be crazy if they traded this guy. They're going to give up that emotional tie to their fan base, the chase for the American League home run record. They're going to give that up. And by the way, they've won a couple games. I think they're either at 500 or somewhere right around there. They're not technically out of it yet. They're going to trade this guy to help somebody else out at the deadline. You would have to give up a massive haul to do that. And no team's going to do that. Why would you give up your whole farm for 10 weeks?
Well, Verducci said they want a team's best pitcher and their best hitter. And if the Giants did that, it's Logan Webb and it's Wilmer right now. But that's not enough. So then you'd have to throw in their best prospect pitcher, Kyle Harrison, and their best prospect hitter, Luis Matos.
Or Marco Luciano.
And then probably Luciano as well.
Yeah.
So you'd end up having to part with a lot of farm and your best big leaguers. You would basically decimate your team.
Yeah, so I don't think that's happening. However, I do think the Giants are going to do something aggressive at the deadline. And I sort of think it's for a reason that hasn't really clicked with everyone yet. It's going to sound simple. I'm not sure if you're all aware. The Giants are a World Series contender. They're really good. They're the second best team in baseball since May 1st. It doesn't matter if you think their lineup looks pretty. They're good. It's now been established. This is one of the top teams in the National League. I could easily argue they are the third best team in the National League. They're certainly top five. They are certainly capable of making the playoffs and competing, and we know darn well what this regime, again, whether you agree with them or not, we know what they do in this situation. They go for it. They reward their guys for playing well. So I know for a lot of you, you think this year's all about the young people.
I love the young people.
We've heard it from so many of our brethren here at the station. Kruger, Shasky, to a degree, Bonte.
Loveman.
It's all about development. This is about the young people. And I would like to say, no, it's not. It is about them in their lane. But over here in this other lane, it's the Giants are one of the best teams in baseball and need to capitalize on that because that's what you do. So I am by no means saying that you need to now ignore the future. I am not saying sell the farm, but I'd sell some of it because whatever you think is going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years is great. I've always been optimistic about that, and this is wonderful that some people are coming up from the farm. But when you got a shot to win, you go for it. And what that means, unfortunately, for Casey Schmitt is I think he needs to be sent back down. This guy captured everybody's imagination about 7 weeks ago.
I thought you were going to give me a Joe Namath right there. Struggling. He's struggling, Mark.
You got to send him down.
Struggling.
You can't have this. In the month of July, Casey Schmitt's batting average
is don't say it.
.094. He's
94.
He's not even at half the Mendoza line.
He can't even sniff Mendoza.
I want him to develop. I think his defense is unbelievable.
Got a cannon.
Got a World Series to go win.
Well,
and the middle of the infield is so clearly a problem right now. Brett Wisely and Casey Schmitt and an injured Brandon Crawford.
Oh, Schmitt.
Ain't it. So when Tyro gets back, that's only half the battle.
When's he coming back, Mark?
I don't even know.
Okay. I was hoping for some good news on the Tyro front.
Somewhat soon, but not in the month of July. Not until August. So they need offensive production there. Casey and Brett have been given their opportunity to do so, and they have not seized that opportunity. I think he is still every bit the future piece that he always was, but this year ain't it.
Well, right now you don't have a lot of choices.
Of course.
Because you've got Brandon Crawford, who's on the IL, Tyro's on the IL, and that's why you're going with Wisely and Schmitt, and you throw in Sable and Bailey, and your 6, 7, 8, 9 hitters are all rookies, and Sable's been remarkably good with the power stick, and Patrick Bailey is, I think, a real candidate for Rookie of the Year. But you mentioned Casey Schmitt, 094 in the month of July. That's not good. And you're going to have some opportunities here to really have to produce. And I think today's game against Cincinnati was, it's not Casey Schmitt's fault, but it definitely shined a brighter light on how this team can be beaten because they have 2 hits in the game, including the Wilmer Flores homer in the 9th. They had 1 hit going through 8. And yesterday, they didn't do much else either. So it's a team that needs an injection, an infusion of life at the All-Star break, which is now just 11 or 12 days away.
I'm not trying to, I think Casey's awesome.
Yeah.
And I thought when he came up, this is really great. By the way, he's been up longer than we realize. He's been up longer than I realized.
Since May 5th, right?
May 9th.
Okay, May 9th, yeah.
Good memory. So in that month of May, he comes up May 9th. His batting average in the month of May was .325.
That's almost a full month, too.
Right, almost a full month. He was very good. OPS 799. That's above average. And as far as extra base hits, he had 2 homers and 6 doubles. He's playing the defense that he plays. This was a very good baseball player in the month of May. But what I just said about July is only barely better in the month of June. He hit a $140 in June, and now he is hitting below 100 in July. That is almost a full 2 months of going 1 for 10. Like June and July put together, 11 hits.
Wow, in 2 months?
In 2 months.
Man.
He's had 11 hits, 4 of them for extra bases, zippo-dippo long balls. So I love the future. I think Casey has always been a prospect where you're like, the defense will play. We're not sure about the offense. We talk about when a league gets a book on you, they're gonna pick on it, and you got to make your adjustment. And I have every belief that he will. But if any of you are cruising around out there going, look, I get it. He's not playing great, but you got to develop this guy for the future. Because come on, are they really going to win it this year? Yes, they might.
They might.
You didn't think in 2010 they could or whatever. You don't have to be the best team on paper. This team has absolutely earned a shot at the playoffs. And I'm sorry, he's got to be sent down. He's got to go back.
Well, you can't right now because Crawford.
Not right now.
Crawford is still a week away from being able to come off the IL. So who are you going to play at shortstop?
Make a trade.
Well,
make a trade and acquire somebody.
And you mentioned the name Nolan Arenado, and that would be
not a shortstop, but yes.
But as an infielder and as a bat and somebody who you could bring in to inject life into this offense. He's on the hook for 4 more years with the St. Louis Cardinals, and it says $109 million remaining in future salaries. So if you were to get Nolan Arenado, and St. Louis is not totally in sell mode yet, but their year's been pretty disappointing. Yeah, 10 and a half back in the Central. That would be the kind of move that if you made that move, that would be a tip of the cap to Farhan type of move because that's a contract you're going to have.
Well, and by the way, it's not as preventative as you think. He is on the hook for 4 more years, but the deal goes down. It's an interesting remaining 4 years for Nolan, who is still producing and is still only 32. So the deal goes through age 36, not like one of these deals that get signed now where it goes through 40 or 41. It goes through 36, and in the final
26.
No, it goes age 36.
Oh,
sorry.
I thought you meant 2036.
It goes through 2027.
Okay, sorry.
You're like, wow.
That's a long deal.
It goes through 2027 through his age 36 season, but it's $35 million next year. It's $32 million after that. It's $27 million after that, and it's $15 million in that final age 36 year. It becomes friendlier as it goes. And yes, he's not quite producing as he did in Colorado, but he's still really producing. He is he's hitting just fine. I think he's hitting 288 Like, he is a lineup changer. Now, I don't know.
I'm looking at this detail, too. $5 million of his salary is paid by the Rockies over the next 3 years. So if you're looking at, a Farhanian kind of bargain savings, it's 35 next year, but it's really only 30 for the Giants because the Rockies would be paying the other 5.
Yeah. I like, this is not financially preventative of anything. And I don't know if that's the guy, but that's the kind of guy I would do that. Because, by the way, what are the Cardinals going to be looking for if they do put a Goldschmidt and an Arenado on the table? Yes, they're going to be looking for a prospect or two, but what are they really going to be looking for? Somebody to raise their hand and say, we'll pay the full freight. And the Giants can do that.
Yeah.
They can do that. So then you don't have to give up much of the farm. You can get a bat like that in the middle of the order for maybe your 7th prospect and just say, yes, we'll pay the freight. Oh, my gosh. I'll do that in a heartbeat. That's the kind of deadline move the Giants need to make. Forget about Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and I know you need a shortstop, and J.D. Davis has been pretty solid over at third, so then you have a J.D. Davis problem. Maybe he's a part of the trade. Maybe it's J.D. Davis and your 9th prospect.
Yeah, but you got your DH. J.D.'s been struggling a lot more. There's ways to move things around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, one thing about Gabe and Farhan, they've been very good about rotating the lineup and shuffling guys in and out. You mentioned the Giants as a World Series contender, and you're right. You look at how they've been over the last, and now the sample size is about 60 games, where they've been very, very good, among the best in baseball. I think they were 14-19 at one point, or 16-23.
Yeah, it's more than 60. It's from the start of May 1st, it's the second best record in baseball.
But if you look at the wild card picture right now, and let's just focus on the wild card because, the Dodgers can be caught, but let's just assume they don't catch them, so you're left with the wild card. It's really 5 for 3 right now. There are 5 teams competing for 3 spots. San Diego and, the Cubs, I think, are not a factor. The Mets need to go on a run to get in the race, but right now it's Arizona, the Giants, the Phillies, the Marlins, and the Reds. It's 5 for 3, and if you look at the Giants roster, the way they've played, and their lasting power, I like their chances of getting at least a wild card.
It's either 5 for 3 or it's 7 for 5, because if you do loop the Dodgers and the Brewers into this, who are leading the Central, the Braves are gone. The Braves are winning the
Gone.
Braves are winning the East. Okay, that's done. Real quick, by the way, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ, FM, and HD1 San Francisco, always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Does anybody think that Casey Schmitt should stay and the Giants should just keep taking the bruises? Again, he hit 140 in June and is hitting 094 in July. So we'll take your calls, 888-957-9570. But yeah, if you loop the Dodgers, who are only 2 games clear of the Giants and the D-backs, and the Brewers, who are only a little bit clear of the Reds, that makes it 7 teams for 5 spots.
Sure.
You got a really good shot. And by the way, if I even just look at that from a baseball standpoint and go, all right, who's a better team? Who do you think will outlast who? I think the Giants are better than the Marlins. I think the Giants are better than the Reds. I think the Giants are better than the Diamondbacks. I'm not sure if they're better than the Phillies. I don't necessarily think they're better than the Dodgers. But, yes.
They're probably better than Milwaukee.
I think the Giants will get and can get one of those spots. And I just want the mentality to change a little bit. And I'm comforted by the fact that I know what the Giants' mentality is. But a lot of fans are like, listen, I get that they're playing well right now, and that's nice. But don't sacrifice development. We're going to need those guys.
Let's talk about development real quick.
You got to go for this, man. You got to change the production out of the middle infield right now.
Development, Mark, in, let's just say development in basketball. Well, there's 2 ways to do it. Go to the G League and play against G Leaguers and get minutes, which doesn't really help prepare you too much for playing against NBA players in the association, because even when you come back, you're probably getting 12 minutes a night as opposed to getting 35 down in the G League. In baseball, development happens one of 2 ways. Either you stick with a guy like Casey Schmitt and you let him go out there and continually beat his head against the wall when he's really scuffling, and I use the Joe Namath struggling. He's more than struggling. Or in baseball, you send him to AAA, hope that he can get right, and then you can bring him back up and see if he can contribute. But Casey Schmitt has plenty of options. He can develop probably better in AAA, hitter-friendly league, much more of a comfortable, less pressurized environment. So in terms of let Casey Schmitt just develop and play through it, I think you're doing him more of a disservice by leaving him here in the bigs and having him just cement failure into his resume.
Well, and I think you're right that he is still here now because they need him.
Right.
They need someone to play shortstop, although don't forget who is the Sacramento River Cats shortstop right now. His name is Marco Luciano. Keep that in the back of your mind, because when you get called up to AAA, as we watched with Matos, all you need to do, if Luciano has 3 good weeks, yeah, he might be one of your acquisitions up the middle of the diamond. Now, that may go the same way as well, and actually, I sort of suspect it would, where Luciano would come up, he'd probably pop real quick, they'd get a book on him, and he's going to go on a period of strikeouts like crazy, and you don't want that in September when you're trying to chase a playoff spot. So I hesitate on that as well, even though I'd love to get a look at him too. I'm excited by these guys, but go back to May. Do you remember the look on Casey's face? It was infectious. Inject Casey's attitude into my veins. He is running around and smiling, chasing Brandon Crawford everywhere he went, do-rag and a smile, having a blast. Have you noticed him this month?
Little hangdog.
My man looks like he's just at the end of his rope, and you don't want that. That's why when people go, what does that mean, call him up too early? That's what it means. You just said it. Too much failure can send confidence into the wrong spot, and to me, it's actually the key to life, confidence. If you don't have that, you got bubkiss.
Well, and fake it till you make it works in many ways, and maybe he was doing that early on where he was up there, see it, hit it, and then the book came out, which is stop throwing him strikes.
Throw a ball.
So then, Chasey, as your son so eloquently named him, and I'm gonna put $1 in the Jude Scholarship Fund every time I use that because it's genius.
Appreciate it. I can use it.
Cha-ching!
Thank
your
you.
9-year-old son calling him Casey Schmitt. It's $2. It's genius.
Cash me out one time.
Totally.
Cash me out more than one time. But anyway, go ahead.
So once he gets into that mode, it's like, okay, now I can't do that anymore. Then they go back to throwing him strikes, and now he's feeling tentative because he's lost his confidence, and now he doesn't know what to do because he came up as a see it, hit it guy. Then they got the book on him, and now they're not throwing him strikes, and he's still doing that, and now he's back to strikes, and so he's all twisted up, Mark. Tongue-tied and twisted.
He has 2 home runs. They came in Game 1 and Game 3.
Of his stint?
Of his Major League career.
Seems like that's a long time ago, Mark.
Not hit another one since. That was May 9th and May 11th. Those were his home runs. And remember, that was when he was 4 for 4 on that third night? He comes up, he goes 2 for 4, 2 for 4, 4 for 4. That's 8 hits. That's the same amount of hits he had in June.
8 hits.
8 hits.
I had a Casey Schmitt jersey in my purchase box, and then I changed it to a Jason Schmitt. How do you feel about
Retro
that?
throwback?
Totally. Only they were the
Pirates
same
or
number.
Giants?
Giants, kid. Let's go.
Yeah, this is it. And come on now, man. This ain't I'm not coming down his road. This is not I'm not ripping Casey Schmitt. But they got to make a move, and they got to do something about the middle of the infield.
Think about it this way, Mark. If the Giants were, let's just say, instead of 54 and 43, let's say they're 43 and 54, they would still need to send Casey Schmitt down.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
If they're 43 and 54, you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are 42 and 54. You're 10 out of the card. Casey Schmitt is 094 in July. He's got 8 hits since May. You would still need to send him down because he is beleaguered and baffled, and he needs to go somewhere and right the ship. So I think that's the easiest way to look at it. Now, They wouldn't do that even if their record was inverted because, as you mentioned before, you got no shortstops right now. But once Crawford is healthy, and if they can add somebody at the deadline who can play shortstop, by all means. And I think deep down, if you put Casey Schmitt on the lie detector or you gave him sodium pentothal, the truth serum, he would say, you know what, I'd kind of like to go to Sacramento for a little bit.
I don't agree with that part at all.
As badly as he's struggling?
Dude, I mean, do you understand the financial ramifications of what you just said?
Just for a little bit to get right.
Yeah, a player doesn't want to leave the big leagues. They do not want to leave the
game
cathedrals.
check is that different?
It's not even just that.
The per diem and the bus rides.
Gosh, like you spend your whole life dreaming about that moment. You don't want to leave. I'm sure Casey has no interest in leaving. Casey is focused right now on, I got to figure this out and go out tomorrow and get 2 hits. That is, I guarantee you, that's his only focus. But I understand where you're coming from the perspective of this would be the best thing for him no matter whether the Giants are good or not. But it's kind of a double whammy when the Giants are good. They are going for a playoff spot, and you just don't have room for automatic outs in the lineup. He has 1 extra base hit since June 11th. 1 extra base hit. And by the way, I'd have to go look and review. It might have been one of those Fister bloop doubles. I don't even know if he deserved the one that he got.
Old Fister bloop.
Man. I mean, these numbers, to be honest with you, I was throwing this out earlier to you. I'm like, we got to talk about Casey Schmitt, and here's what I think. And I hadn't even looked at these numbers. They're worse than I thought they were.
Right.
This is like, my gosh, this is barely above what Johnny Cueto would do if you stuck him in the lineup every day.
Cueto.
It's brutal, and I hate that for Casey, but 11 hits in 2 months? Good Lord.
And you can't give him a day off because you need him to go out there. And the one saving grace is his defense has been
it's amazing.
Spectacular.
He's fantastic out there, which is what the book was always on him. So he'll be back. He'll be back. This is not a death knell to his career by any stretch. But to me, we got to change the mentality. This year is not all about development. This year is about this year.
Right, which is it's why you're playing Sable, and it's why you're playing Bailey. It's because they've been great, and Matos has been solid. If they weren't playing well, they wouldn't be up here. You can develop them in AAA just as easily.
Right. And I mean, Farhan said that to us directly because it was right around when Luis Matos got called up. And, we did a hypothetical like, okay, what happens when Haniger comes back? And he's like, if Matos is producing, he's not going back down. And Matos has not been perfect, but he's been good enough. He has looked the part, and it has now been in somewhat of an extended period. Whacked a double over everybody's head earlier today. So Matos is fine. Bailey's a stud.
Bailey.
And Sable is certainly good enough for the role that they have for him. But Casey Schmitt and Brett Wisely, we can't do this anymore.
No.
DeSclafani, we can't do this anymore.
Just real quick, in 10 seconds or less, did you see Wilmer try to score from first today?
Yes.
Because everyone's talking about, Ellie De La Cruz and the throw. That was Wilmer Flores, my friends.
He could have bowled the ball to home plate. Like, did you see Ellie? Like, by the way, that was Matos' double. Matos hits the double, and the Giants are struggling offensively, so I get why they sent him.
Woo!
But De La Cruz gets the ball in short left, and he turns around, and you could almost see him look at home plate, and he's just like, well, okay, let me do a little crow hop here.
He went into a stretch.
Yeah, just double tap. Let me make sure I don't throw this over the catcher's head. Here you go, buddy, because I think you're going to have a minute or two to tag him when this gets there.
Oh, my God.
Wilmer got to about halfway to third, and it was just like they were backing up the truck. Oh, my God.